Hello, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Sharon,
I'm Chuck.
and we are called to love. We are going to talk about faith, family, and food. We like to eat and we like to cook around here. So today, we're going to talk about an interesting subject. It's about foster parenting. Chuck and I have fostered 19 children over the years, and we have adopted how many of those 19?
Not all of them.
8.
Eight.
And one private adoption. 8 came out of the foster care system. We have had several comments recently through different social media that have asked about foster parenting and the process. And some people have made the comment, well, I would, but I'm afraid I would get too attached.
Right.
So we want to kind of dig into this today of how we became foster parents and some of the ups and downs and some of the really hard things and some of the blessings of being a foster parent.
Right.
So thanks for being here with us today. We are a new podcast. We are sure we're going to make lots of mistakes.
Right.
We welcome your feedback. It's very important to us to know how to continue this podcast and to give you information that you would like, topics you'd like to discuss, and
Prove as we go.
we do want to improve as we go. He's an IT guy, I'm an RN. He's a dad, I'm a mom. And we're just going to bring that to you and see where this goes. All
Yep.
right, so let's get into it. How did we become foster parents?
Well, it wasn't our original plan. I think you had thought of it prior to our meeting, but
I had
actually a day before we got married, we saw a newspaper article
2 days.
2 days before we got married, and we recognized that the woman who was in the picture was the biological mother of my stepson, your adopted son, and
There were other children involved.
other children. Yeah,
It was
his
front page
siblings.
news in our town.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and so we said, "What are we gonna do?" You asked me what
I
we're gonna do.
actually was at a clinical rotation furthering my nursing degree. I picked up the front page news and there it was. I contacted Chuck. We decided we would contact the local authorities and say, hey, we have a sibling. What can we do? How can we support this family in this time of crisis? And we're more than willing to open our home to those children. And that started a 3-year process
Right.
of trying to help reunify or adopt those children. It wasn't successful then. It's a very long story, but that started us down the journey of we had to become a licensed foster home to potentially take in children we were already aware of. So we kind of had a different entrance into the foster care system as some do. If you want to do a kinship, and if you're familiar with that word, it's maybe a relative that the children have been removed by the Department of Child Services and they need a home, and you have to become a licensed foster home and have all the background checks and the home checks and all that process and take the classes.
Yeah.
Now, I had initially, several years before, started foster parent training. I was on an infertility journey at that time, and I couldn't continue the training because it was very painful to me to think that I could bring a child into my home and them not stay. I didn't fully understand the concept of what foster parenting means. And as I was understanding that the goal was reunification always, when a child first comes into service, the goal will always be reunification with their family of origin. I was looking for a way to conquer my infertility, if you will, and become a parent. And I thought that would be an easy way. That was a very wrong perception on my part. And when I realized that, I stepped back because I knew I wasn't in the space in my own emotional well being to bring a child into my home with the goal of reunifying. So I stepped back when I realized, and we've learned so much about that along the way, haven't we, honey?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, when you called me about the newspaper article, you said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, we'll go get them." I
He
mean,
said, "Well,
we didn't know anything
yeah,
at
we,
all.
you know,
First
we're-
impulse was, well, these kids need some help, and we know a little bit of their background, and we could step in and help. So
and it's not
yeah,
that
there's
easy."
no. We've learned so much
We have.
through the through the process. But um, the thing is that, if you wait until you're ready, you may never be ready.
And
You-
that's true and you hear parents say that, well, we want to wait till this and this and this, and people say if you wait till then you'll never have children, right? It's kind of the same thing. There is a huge need for good foster homes in this country. And you hear all these horror stories about abuse, but really I would say the biggest need is because of addiction, substance abuse in this country, that most of these children, I would dare
Mhm.
say most of these children,
Are
come
impacted by that.
into the welfare system and the child protective services because of addictions. And so the hope is, and the initial goals are always, let's get these kids in a safe place where their needs are being met, and let's get some
Focus on the
services for that
parents,
family to reunify and fix the things that are so broken.
right?
And unfortunately, that sounds great, but it's a very difficult journey through substance addictions, through um, abuse and neglect, through mental
Um,
health issues. There's
and
so many things.
and just learning basic life skills and
Right, right,
parenting
right.
skills, because often there's situations where maybe the children weren't planned, or the just
Young
the parents
parents, young
don't
parents.
have the skills. If their focus is on uh, fulfilling these needs for their substance addiction, or even just sometimes just not having an organized life, not having a good income, maybe there's some domestic violence issues,
Housing.
they're just not necessarily living life well in a healthy way.
Right.
And so keep the children safe, provide resources for the parents to learn to how to live in a way.
Right, right. And a lot
Um,
of times we've also seen, we fostered 19 children over the years. And what we saw is, I think every one of those parents had been in this system as children themselves.
I think
So
in
they
most
already
cases,
came from really difficult backgrounds. And then when the storms of life come, things happen and it spiraled down. So, what I want to get to today, I think, because there's a vast amount
yeah,
of information we could talk about in this situation, in this subject, is the comment I get so much of the time is, well, I would do it, but I would just get too attached. And
right.
so, my first reaction to that is, if you do not become attached, please do not become a foster parent. Don't
Yeah,
you think that comment, my first reaction is, then please don't be a foster parent if you can't become attached to that?
well, I think there's layers to that. I mean,
Sure.
it's you can't go into it not wanting to be disappointed, not wanting oh, I might get hurt. Your focus has to be on the children.
Hmm.
And um, if you can't step in and love them unconditionally, then what are you really offering them? I mean,
Yeah. Why are
that's
you considering being a foster parent?
yeah,
What do you
yeah,
have to offer? You need to really take a self inventory, a self evaluation. Why do I want to do this?
hmm
And what can I bring to the table? What am I not willing to do? That's a
right.
big one.
Well, and I think that's fair, and you have to identify those things, and if you can identify and set those parameters, because you can be somewhat selective in like what age of children you'll bring, or
Sure,
what
sure.
situations are coming out. But listen, let's be honest, you don't know upfront what they're coming out of, and often the caseworkers and folks
They
who've
won't
removed
know.
them, they don't know the full story either.
No.
Sometimes they have a little background, but so I mean, you're always going to get surprised. But the
Right.
one thing I wanted to say is that we feel that we are, all of us are called to love, and that is the healing salve that these children need.
Yeah.
And so while it might be a lot for you to pour into that child and then think about, but what if they leave? How am I going to feel? But you know what? That's sacrificial love.
Hmm.
That's a love that's going to maybe take something away from you. But think about what you've put into that child
Right.
by truly
Right.
loving them, by truly giving them somebody who loves them and nurtures them and meets their needs and gives them the attention. And no slight on the family of origin.
No.
For whatever
No.
reason they weren't capable to do that. It doesn't matter. The child deserves it and needs it. And so if you can step in and offer that, and I think that's what draws most people to it, that you're going to sow seeds. I mean, like Sharon mentioned, we have a lot of children that did reunify,
Yes.
but I'm proud of what we put into their life for that season. And in some cases, you may or may not have an opportunity to see them as they continue, maybe
Right.
even from afar. But even if not, you know that you invested in that child, and that investment's going to take something from you. And that investment might later be like, oh gosh, I wonder how they're doing or whatever. But you have to be willing to make that investment because you're investing in a child's
Well,
life.
and you've heard me say this so many times. When a child comes in and needs services like this, that something has happened that disrupted their life, your focus is to try to reunify that family. And a very huge part of that has to be that they have to return to a safe environment.
Right.
While we're working with the parents and trying to help them through the issues and circumstances they're dealing with, that child doesn't have a pause button that you can push. Their childhood does not stop during that time of healing that family fracture, right? So you have to look at your responsibility as a foster parent is to come over here and make sure while all that's happening, while mom and dad or grandparents, whoever it is, are trying to get the help they need to restructure their life and meet their own needs to bring that child back to their family and keep those bonds positive during that time when they're away from their family of origin,
Mhm.
that you have to continue their childhood, their education, their nutrition, doctors, dental, school, depending on the child's age.
And
They may need therapies, they may need physical
yeah,
things
that's what I was
like,
thinking. Just the
physical therapy,
developmental cycles.
occupational therapy. They maybe are delayed. Maybe this is a family that's moved around a lot or has been homeless and the
Hmm.
children haven't had the basics of education or in a consistency, I guess is the word I
Right.
was looking for. So then that's our job as a foster parent to come in and look at those pieces. And like you said, we may not know the history.
Right.
The caseworker probably doesn't. This is a child that they got a call from the police department at 1 a.m. because there was a drug bust and
Hmm.
there's three little kids here in diapers or pajamas or crying and don't know what's going on, and you're taking all of the adults there into custody, and here they are, you really don't know. And so it takes sometimes weeks or months
To kind of
to
unpack
find
things.
out, yeah, to unpack. There's so many layers, like an onion, you just unpeel one layer and then there's more, and it takes a long time. And as you build trust with those children
Hmm.
and a safe environment, for us, we worked very hard to have a relationship in a safe manner with the family of origin.
Hmm.
We always let them have my cell phone number. I've had
Hmm.
the same cell phone number for over 20 years, that they could text and say, hey, I know at our visit today, little Susie wasn't feeling well. How is she? I want you to know I checked her fever. I checked her temperature. She has no fever. She's playing. She ate dinner, had a bath. We're getting ready to lay down. I will let her know that you called and that you love her so much and you wanted to make sure she was okay. It's very, very important
Yeah.
to keep that bond between that parent and child.
You were always particularly good about that, and I think really both of us trying to not be judgmental of
Hmm.
their situation or their
Yeah,
circumstance.
yeah.
And I mean, there are times where there's hostilities and you may have to be
Yeah.
a little more careful, a little more distant. But I think you always extended an open invitation. What I wanted to say too, when you mentioned like the pause button and just everything that's going on,
Yeah.
and our role or foster parent role in that is to have your focus on the best primary needs of the child,
Child.
what's best for the child. And this is where their character and personality, well, of course, it depends on the age, but their character and personality is developing. And so providing that structure, providing a consistency of expectations are met, that informs who they become. There are issues of attachment, you
Hmm.
hear about RAD, right?
Reactive
Attachment.
attachment disorder,
And I
RAD.
think so it's important that if you're going to open your home and be in these situations, to provide the consistency that you can, and even sometimes navigating that around maybe some of the situations, like maybe a visit cancellation, visit change, and trying to provide ways that that child isn't constantly encountering, an unmet need or an
Or a
expectation.
big disappointment.
Yes, yes. So because that all factors into
Their
their
overall
emotional
mental health.
development and
Yes.
well-being, and even keeping consistency in schedule and
Right.
structure, or
And this is a
Um,
child that may have never had a schedule before.
right.
We had a little girl who she wouldn't hardly eat anything, and she kept saying this word that was a made up word. We didn't know. I had no idea what this child wanted to eat. We tried everything, and I said, I'm taking this little 4-year old to the grocery store, and we're going to find out what that is. I just told her, we're going grocery shopping. You come with me. And we're going up and down every aisle. And it was like, there it was. The rainbows came out, the bluebird. She was like, oh, it was ramen. I don't keep ramen on hand. I do now more, but I didn't then.
Yeah.
She wanted ramen and she kept saying they're red. They're red. I thought of apples, tomatoes,
Right. It
ketchup,
was the red
spaghetti, all the things.
package.
It was the beef ramen
Red
in a red
package.
package. And they were 25 cents. That's probably what her situation was that they could afford. That was a favorite food that she had. And so then when I found that, I was like, hallelujah.
In that
And it
case,
was
it
the
wasn't
comfort of home for her.
right. It was
Yeah.
an unmet need she was expressing, and we had to translate, figure out what it was.
Hmm.
But to be able to meet that need, then that brought her some peace, and we were concerned she wasn't eating, and from there,
Right.
then she expanded into other foods.
And
But
she did. She started eating other things because she knew those were also there. And if she didn't really want that, I tell you, I met a foster parent recently and she was having an issue. These were two children that were older, they were school age children. And she's like, well, they're just mad that they don't get soda pop and they're just mad that they can't have white bread. Okay, I understand that you want them to be healthy, and maybe you haven't typically bought soda pop or white bread. Maybe you eat whole grains, and that's okay. But if that's all they've ever known, just think this is everything new. Their whole
hmm
world is disrupted, and you're bringing them into a house that has polar opposites. You
hmm
have to be able to be flexible where it's safe
hmm
and moral and ethically right,
hmm
and you have to say, okay, I don't usually buy white bread, but for now, I'm going to have to do that.
Right. Right.
And maybe we can say, well, we don't do soda, we don't do sugar, but let's do that 3 times a week. We'll choose Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, whatever.
hmm
You have to be willing to compromise. You can't be you have to be willing to grow
There has to be a
your
period of
viewpoint.
transition or assimilation. You
Yeah.
can't immediately put them into your structure. I mean, even hygiene routine, or so
Bedtime.
maybe they've never slept in bed. That's what I was gonna say. They might want to sleep on the floor, sleep on
Yeah,
the
or on
couch,
the
or
couch.
have had their mattress on the floor, or
Yeah.
maybe they bring their favorite pillow and stuffy, and you
And they
think, oh, I
stink.
don't want that in my house.
You have to
But
let them
it's
have
their
it. You have
comfort,
to.
and
Yes.
you have to recognize that you are really trying to meet the need of that child, and the more abrasively you try to strip things away and put them into your
Here comes their
structure.
wall.
Yeah, and think about that. I mean, you don't want that. You don't want someone to force that on you.
No.
And again, even if the way they communicate, the way they talk is different, you have to give them the freedom and space to
To be
feel
who they
safe and feel
are. Yeah.
comfortable, to open up you
Can
in
you
your
imagine
home.
the pressure of being afraid you're going to offend these new adults that you don't even know? You've never been there before, and they immediately want to put you in a bathtub because that's often the case. But you're asking them to be so vulnerable and remove their clothing.
Mm.
It's a process. It's a process. So we need good and responsible and kind homes, but you have to just be committed to the moment they cross the threshold into your house, they're part of your family and you're going to love them, at least treat them as lovingly as you would if you have a biological child in the home. And that's another thing you have to be careful. Not only that you're not showing favoritism to the biological child or what your foster child will perceive as that, you also have to be careful if you have children. Number one, you have to keep them safe. You don't know what this other person has been exposed to, or maybe they cuss like a sailor and you don't allow that in your home, or your child hasn't been exposed to certain games or touch. You want to be very careful about that. Protect your own child without making that new child feel like there's something to be protected from, right?
hmm
And you also don't want your children that are already in your home to feel like, well, I'm nothing now that the new kid's here, and turn your kids at home against the new child. It's a balancing act. You're walking a tightrope. And
And it could even be, how come they get to sleep on the floor? I want to sleep on
on
the
the
floor.
floor, right,
I mean,
right.
really, you have to
Well,
balance it.
why do
And
they get soda? We've
yeah,
never had that before.
part of their, it's just making them feel like they're a part of the routine and a
Yeah.
part of the home and not, this anomaly. Sometimes you may have children who have had multiple placements, and think
And
about
each
that. Then,
time
yeah,
they move from one home to the other, statistically, studies show that it's more difficult for them to attach the next time. Every time you break a bond, it's more difficult for the child to attach to and make a new bond. They learn mistrust. They learn not to trust and not to feel permanent and not
hmm
to feel planted and secure. It's really difficult. So if you're thinking about the foster parent journey, know that your heart's going to get broken. Probably. The chances are good that they will. We hope that the children can reunify with that family of origin. That has to be the goal. Fostering is not a cure for infertility. I learned that very quickly. It was not a cure for infertility. It is a hard and winding road. There will be days where you think this is great, the parents are doing good, it's going good, and then it's going to crash. And then that's going to reset the clock for what's the permanency plan for the child. You don't want the child to know all that. Now, obviously, they're going to know if the visits suddenly stop and mom or dad is missing all of a sudden and they're not returning the phone calls or their visits that they were supposed to be seeing mom and dad every Tuesday and Thursday, and all of
hmm
a sudden they're not, and you have to be able to tell them, I'm not sure what's going on, but people are working with your mom and dad, and we're going to try to get those visits back as soon as
and that's a
possible. Be careful with the information you give them. You
well,
want to protect them
and
without being
as a
dishonest.
responsible adult, you have to please be sure that you're not speaking critically about
Their family. Yeah.
their family of origin, no matter how frustrated you might be, no matter how legitimate it might be. You again have to put yourself in that child's perspective and tell them
Their
that
eyes.
that's their family and they don't know any different. Even if they have their own angers and frustrations, that's still their family. And when you cut at that in a negative way, you're cutting at that child,
Sure.
and even we've gone on to adoption situations. Even in the post-adoption phase, you still have to remember, just remember that that's an anchor of their life. And
Absolutely. It's
if
where they
it's
come
all
from.
negative and
Yes.
all rejection, and you came from dirt or trash
Then
or
they
anything
think they're
mean,
dirt or they're
yeah,
trash or
yes. And
they're
we've
whatever
always
that
been careful to say,
negativity
listen,
is. No,
they
no.
loved you, they were incapable of providing for you, or just couldn't love
Some
you.
circumstances were
Yeah,
there. It's kind of grown up stuff, and we're going to keep you safe while they're trying to work out the things that they need to do. And sometimes we just have to say, I really don't know the answer. Well, when can I go home, honey? I don't know. I don't know. But you're safe here until then.
right, right.
Is there something you need right now? And something else like we had mentioned about staying in, making a trust relationship as much as possible with the bio family. I would say for them, a birthday's coming up or Christmas is coming up or whatever. It was nice to be able to say, hey, is there anything that you did special on birthdays that you would like me to do for little Johnny that would maybe make this a slightly less painful or feel more familiar or what he's used to, or at Christmas time, is there a tradition that you have that you would like me to continue? That goes a very, very long way. A very long way. And it's important, even when you're just so angry at the system or at the bio parents or whatever, you cannot project that to the child. You just can't. So, yes, if you can know going in with eyes wide open, that would be my advice. Go in with eyes wide open and know that at the very heart of it, it's about the child's heart, their environment, their childhood does not have a pause button while all these other things are happening with the adults in their life, people making decisions for them. They are just the recipient of what's happening around them. They have no control over it,
hmm
and their childhood doesn't go on pause. And typically, when a child is removed to reunify, it takes 12 to 24 months for those problems to be addressed and corrected to the point where the department feels they can go back home safely. So it's a long time.
hmm
18 months in the life of a 3-year-old, going from age 3 to 5, is a huge amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't stop. And it's our responsibility then to keep that in motion as healthy and stable and meeting all those milestones there and putting those building blocks in place in their foundation so that when they do leave you, that they're prepared and equipped and safe to meet the next step in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But it started out with if I would foster, but I'm afraid I'll get attached.
Mm-hmm.
Please attach to them. Let them feel attached to you. Let them feel loved and wanted and desired and valued. If you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think you have to realize, like, eyes wide open for sure, that they're not in that need for no reason. So there
Right.
are things that, you're going to be surprised by. There are things that you'll be shocked by. There'll be things that will break your heart. But again, you're choosing to invest in another
In the
person's
life of a
life,
child.
and
And maybe a
that's
whole family.
yeah, really. I mean,
Really.
if you really go in with love and not judging, that impacts other people. A man just a couple weeks ago told me that he had had children removed many years ago, and over the years he's watched us, and he said, "You've changed my mind about foster parent,
The enemy.
and
Yeah.
you healed something in me." He said, "I realized I was angry at the system and not angry at the foster parents." He said, "You've shown me that you really do, that there are loving foster parents out there who really care about the families." But anyway, I just go in eyes wide open. Don't be afraid to take a risk, because again,
the kids are worth it.
The cost of that risk may be heartache to you, but you're investing and sowing seeds in a life that can make a difference for a lifetime.
Right.
And that child and potentially the people around you.
Well, thank you for joining us on our podcast,
Call to
Love, where we talk about faith and family and food, and we're trying to bring about subjects you want to talk about. And today it was sharing our life experience. We're not experts on anything,
right.
But we've been around the sun a couple times each.
Some of us more than others.
Him more than me. And so we'd like to share with you what our life experience has been. We believe that everybody has a story. And if we all share those stories, we can learn from one another. So please leave us a comment. If you want to say something about today, if you want to share an experience, you can reach me at sharon.aikman, SHARON, AIKMAN @gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.
Thanks.